Hey, well, we already talked about it, but what traditional gathering will folks be celebrating this week, this Thursday? There you go, Thanksgiving. You know, you keep hearing about they're trying to shut down Thanksgiving. This state's declared they're not going to let you do it and all that kind of thing. Somebody at work was talking the other day that a governor or a mayor or something somewhere said they were going to pass a ordinance mandating that no more than 5 people could meet together in a home at Thanksgiving. But they also said that some family member found out that the city would allow a funeral to have a gathering of 30 at the funeral. So they said that they're not calling it, so that they can meet this year and celebrate Thanksgiving as a family. They're not calling it Thanksgiving, but instead they're going to get together to have a funeral for the turkey that died. So sounds to me there's a lot of government officials that are the turkeys this year. But anyway, I mentioned Thanksgiving because the other day I was talking with my dad. He was kind of reminiscing about some of his favorite Thanksgiving traditions from the past. One that he mentioned was that for many, many years, I think it was over 20 years or something, the Sunday night after Turkey Day, the church he goes to, Corinth Baptist Church, that Sunday night, everybody in the community knew that the singing group, the Southern Gospel singing group, the Inspirations, would be in town. Man, they would pack the house. None of the other churches even needed to have church that Sunday night because everybody was leaving, going over to Corinth to hear the Inspirations. Any of y'all ever heard them or heard of them? Oh, y'all have? Holy cow, yeah, about half of y'all have heard of them. I'm surprised. Well, one of their favorites to do at that Sunday night singing was "The Walls Came Tumbling Down." Anybody want to take a wild guess at where they took that from the Bible? That's right, Joshua and the walls tumbling down. Hey, go ahead and turn there to Joshua chapter 6. We're going to look at it in a minute. But one reason that this song, "The Walls Came Tumbling Down," it was a favorite, not only with the group to sing, but with everybody there, because it kind of has that Dennis row, row, row your boat kind of feel to it. The chorus would go, I wrote it down so I could say it for you, not sing it. But anyway, at the chorus it would go, "And the walls, and the walls, and the walls came tumbling down. Joshua, Joshua, Joshua marched 7 times around." So, they'd kind of get the crowd going with them like that. I guess we could try it, huh? "And the walls, and the walls, and the walls came tumbling down." I think y'all could do it, but we won't try it. Hey, check it out on YouTube. Hey, Miss Sandy, the song's only 1 minute and 52 seconds long. Even if you don't like Southern gospel music, check it out on YouTube. The Inspirations, "The Walls Came Tumbling Down." If nothing else, I think you'll get a laugh out of the suits that they all got on and the setting behind them. You get a chuckle out of that. It's definitely dated. Of course, I didn't laugh too loud because it's the clothes I was wearing at the time too. But anyway, check it out. As I thought about that after talking with my dad, I couldn't get the song out of my head, so I did look it up, listen to it, and I sang along with Archie, the lead singer, and all the rest of them. And then after singing it and, hearing the song, then I couldn't get the story out of my head of how the Bible talked about how the walls literally came tumbling down. So I know at the danger of this being a wore-out story that maybe most of us have heard as young kids from Sunday school, about Joshua and the walls came tumbling down, I want us to look at it today. And we are going to think about the day that the walls came tumbling down. So if you can, in honor of reading God's Word, stand with me, read Joshua chapter 6. I'll go ahead and warn you, I'm reading verses 1 through 20. So if you get tired, you can sit down. They're short, but I'm reading through the NIV today. And this is how it goes. This is how it was recorded. It says, "Now the gates of Jericho," and again, this is the NIV, "the gates of Jericho were secured," here we go, I got to say it right, "were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out, and no one came in. So then the Lord said to Joshua, 'See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. Now march around the city once with all the armed men, and do this for 6 days. have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. And on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priest blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpet, have the whole army give a loud shout. Hey, this is just a side note. I wanted to know, how big was the army? Well, in Joshua chapter 4, verse 13, there it says there were 40,000 troops ready to go to battle. So that's 40,000 people. So picture that in your mind. There were at least 40,000 of them doing this deal every day, going around the city. It says in verse 6, so Joshua, son of Nun, he called the priests together and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the army to advance, march around the city with an armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. Now when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpet, and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the ark as well. Now all this time the trumpets were sounding, but Joshua had commanded the army, do not give a war cry, do not raise your voices, and don't say a word. Man, that had to be hard for them to keep quiet until the day I tell you to shout, and then shout. Everybody shout. Shout. So he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circling it once. Then the army returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets went forward, marching before the ark of the Lord and blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them. The rear guard followed the ark, while the trumpets just kept on sounding. Sounds like a New Orleans jazz funeral, something going on. So on the 2nd day, they marched around the city once and returned to camp, and they did this for 6 days. How crazy that must have been to the people of Jericho watching it, you know. And as one commentator said, they could probably see the rest of the Israelites in the horizon, the couple million of them or something. In the day, they could see the smoke from the campfires. At night, they saw the glow of the campfires. They got to be wondering, what in the world is going on? So on the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times. Except on that day, they circled the city 7 times, and on the 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army to shout, for the Lord has given you the city. The city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she spared the spies. Keep away from the devoted things. Verse 19, he goes on. And in verse 20, when the trumpet sounded, the army shouted. And at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall fell down. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. I wonder at that moment who was most surprised, the people in Jericho or the children of Israel, when the walls came tumbling down. Almighty God, as we look at this fantastic account in your word today, I know there's the danger of hearing something so many times, God, we just get complacent with it. But God, help us today to hear this for our own heart and our own soul like the first time ever. Take your holy word, speak to each one of us as differently as you know we need it. Because God, we come here today not to just hear a story from the Bible, but God, we come here today to hear how you can change our heart and change our lives. As always, I ask you, God, that the enemy have no place stealing your word from our heart, but that it do what you would have it to do. In Jesus' blessed name I ask you, amen. Hey, thank you. You can grab a seat. Yeah, you get a little taste of what it's like to have to stand up for the whole sermon, right? I keep telling y'all, one day y'all are going to stand up and I'm going to sit down. But that ain't happened yet, has it? Think about it, y'all. When Israel entered their promised land, it was like the door slammed shut behind them. There was no turning back now going out into the desert. The only way for them to go was forward. Verse 1, a redundant question, but I'll ask it anyway to make sure you're still awake and listening. What was the first city that they had to attack? Everybody say Jericho. Jericho. You know, say it like you mean it. Jericho. We were singing, you know, the first song, that He Has Made Me Glad. I was turning around and looking. I don't know how many of them were glad. I almost made you sing it again, sing it till they were glad. Miss Jerry's glad, and I'm glad. But anyhow, they had to conquer Jericho. I just want to tell y'all, don't think for a minute this was easy to prepare for today because it's so well known. On the contrary, I know that it is so well known. I played archaeologist today, Miss Deb, or this last week, and I tried to dig up as much stuff about Jericho as I could, things I had never heard before, so maybe it'll speak to us like it never has. So if you're ready to hear what I got to say let's go. Let's go. Y'all sound like it, so here we go. We're going to march around the city. See, 6 times. And so actually marched around the city, 13 times, right? 13 is my favorite number. Again, where do I get this? I'm talking too much. Let's go. I found out about Jericho. It was only one city in the whole land of Canaan. You know, for years, I never realized that. I thought when they captured Jericho, that was the whole promised land. But it wasn't. Jericho was but one city in a whole area called Canaan. Canaan was the name of a large and prosperous country that today would include Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. So if you want to know how big that the land of Canaan was, look on your map today, find those 4 countries that are over there, and that would be how large the land of Canaan was. And remember, Jericho was one city amongst all that. Now this was interesting. When I think of Canaan, I thought it was one country, not under God, but I thought it was one country that had one ruler. But it wasn't. Jericho, again, was one city, and there were probably about 5 other city-states, they called them, that were scattered out through Canaan. There was never a time recorded that a king ruled over a unified Canaan as one single nation. Instead, there were 5 to 7, like I said, they called them city-states, Jericho being one of them, and each one of these city-states had their own king or their own ruler. So they were kind of like neighbors in a neighborhood. It was one big neighborhood, and you had the neighbors all living in there that worked together. Maybe it was the first HOA, man, I don't know. But they worked together, and they pulled together to make sure the country fared well. Well, the city of Jericho, it covered about 8 acres. About 8 acres. It was situated, I love to know where things are at. When I'm studying a city, I look in a book of maps in the back of the Bible and figure it out. Jericho is about 6 miles west of the Jordan River. It's about 10 miles northwest of the Dead Sea, and it's 17 miles northeast of Jerusalem. So now you know exactly where we're at, right? Everybody knows. Yeah, there you go, Laura. You can go ahead and look in the back. Check it out. See where it's at there. City of Jericho. Now, I had no idea about this. We live at, 6,000 feet above sea level. Jericho sat at about 800 feet below sea level, so it was one of the lowest cities on earth, at that time. It's surrounded by a parched desert area, but does anybody remember the nickname of it? Anybody know the nickname of Jericho? The city of... I know you know it, Reverend. You want to say it. The city of palm trees. Hey, what city is it? That's not Los Angeles, is it? No. What's some city they call it? Where is it? Palm Springs. Palm Springs. Yeah, well, that makes sense. Hey, it was the Palm Springs of its day. Again, it was surrounded by a parched desert area, and it was literally like an oasis in the desert. It had a continuous spring that supplied the city. So therefore, palm trees flourished and all kind of vegetation abounded there as well. So it was a green spot on the brown section of the earth there. It sat at a major crossroads where all the trade routes running west to east and east to west and north to south, they all intersected at Jericho. So you can imagine what kind of city this was. A very prosperous, bustling city. I didn't realize this. Jericho's mentioned 59 times in the Bible, both in the Old and in the New. And as you read the Gospels, see, Jesus spent a lot of time there. That's where he met Zacchaeus. You know, Zacchaeus, the wee little man. He met Zacchaeus in Jericho. Our Lord healed 2 blind men in Jericho in Mark chapter 10. And then what great story was Jericho a part of? The parable of the Good Samaritan. Remember, Jesus said in Luke 10:30, it said that a man was headed down to Jericho when he was attacked by thieves. Well, here we go, y'all. After 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, the people of God, they're ready to begin the process of claiming their promised land. And can you imagine the first time they set eyes on Jericho? They've been out in the wilderness, been out there sweltering under the hot Mideastern sun. They've been eating sand. They're exhausted from their journey. And there it is, rising up from the desert floor is the city of palm trees. It's literally an oasis, and it must have looked like a paradise to them. You know, it looked like paradise. The only problem is it was inhabited by the enemy. The city was shut up tight. It was locked up, closed down, and even worse, there were giants that lived in the land there. So it must have looked like an impregnable fortress. I practiced that word all week and I nailed it. Impregnable fortress. This is interesting to me, y'all. You know, I always pictured them as they're trudging through the desert. You know, like here, it's kind of flat, and then all of a sudden they come upon Jericho and it's flat. It was built, Jericho, what they would do, not just to Jericho, but to help to make a city more easily defensible, they would build them on what they called a tel, T-E-L. Today we say a hill or a mound. You know, you heard of Tel Aviv? It means the city that's built on a tel. Okay, so Jericho, it was built on this tel, this hill, this mound. Scholars tell us there wasn't just one wall that come tumbling down, but there had to be 2 walls. In the 50s, a lady, Barbara Kendron, I think her name was, did an archaeological dig there. They discovered that there's 2 walls. The first wall was at the base of the tel, or hill, or mound. They said it's probably about 20 feet high and about 6 feet wide. Up about 45 feet, going up this mound, is the second wall, which they figure was probably just about the same size as the first one. So to take the city was literally going to be all what? Uphill battle. Maybe that's where the phrase came from. It was an uphill battle. So check this out. To defend their city, whether it was Jericho or wherever, like I said, they had the first wall. So that gave them plenty of time to defend the city when the enemy came. They had to get through there. On the first wall, the guards, of course, are up there. They had the guard houses and stuff. And you read all kind of different things there. Some people said that they lived in the walls. I'm not getting into all that. But anyhow, I know the guards would be up there. And as the attacking army would come, what can they do? They can easily just shower down arrows at them. The most dastardly thing, Miss Sandy, they would do was pour boiling oil off of the wall onto the enemy, or they would have huge boulders lined up on top of the wall, and as the enemy would try to climb the wall, they would just push the boulders off, just smush them like we would step on an ant. So this place had to look like Fort Knox to them. We dogged the Israelites for not going in and taking this thing when they first were supposed to. But you think about what they were up against. We have no idea what it was for them to see this. Here they are, a bunch of people, a bunch of ragtag warriors. They got swords, spears, and, arrows, and that's all they've got. And here they come up against one of the most fortified cities in the world at that time. Yeah, I hope I don't bore you with giving you these facts about Jericho, because it was just the contrary for me. Because as I did realize now, like I never had before, what a fortress this place was, it makes God giving them the city even greater. Amen? It does to me. That's why it's so awesome. Don't listen to some preacher. Don't let some preacher bore you to death or whatever. And dig for yourself and find out what the Bible's talking about. So as crazy as it was for them to take this city, remember Jericho was more than just a city. It stood as an obstacle, the first obstacle that they had to get through to claim their promised land. Before they could go deeper into Canaan, before they could go deeper into the land that God had given them, Jericho had to be defeated. So Jericho, friends, was more than a city. It was actually a barrier between them and what God's best lay in store for every one of them. If they were going to get all that God had coming to them, the walls had to come tumbling down. Tumbling down, tumbling down, tumbling down. So, of course, man, here's the first lesson for us. You don't even have to go to seminary to figure this first lesson out, which I'm just giving y'all the mountain peaks of what I could have shared with y'all today. But the first lesson is this. You know, what is the wall or walls that are standing between you and God's best for your life? You know, maybe it's some ongoing sin that you struggle with. Maybe it's some old hurt that has taken root as bitterness. It might be a cold and indifferent heart. Maybe it's a bad attitude, an unforgiving spirit, anger. Whatever it is, it stands before you today, and it's keeping you from going deeper in your relationship with the Lord. You know, do you ever think, you know, God, I want to get closer to you, but there's just something keeping me from getting there. You know, it's a wall that you have allowed to set up that's keeping you from getting where God wants you to be. You know, that wall has got to come down, and it may involve you forgiving somebody, or it may involve you asking somebody to forgive you. You know, it may take developing a new circle of friends. It may take changing the kind of TV that you watch, the books that you read, the websites that you surf. All I know, friends, is that God did not rescue His people and bring them out of Egypt just to take them to Jericho so that they would fall in the desert. No! You know, He had a greater plan for them, and it's the same for us. God has saved us from hell so that we can walk in victory, not in the sweet by and by, but in the here and now. Amen? You know, God doesn't want us to wait till we get to heaven to celebrate all He has done for us. He wants us to start here and now. So friends, if we're going to do that, first of all, we got to recognize any walls that are in our life. And when we recognize the wall, we must resign ourselves to God's way of getting rid of it, because then and only then will we reap the victory that God has in store for us. Man, I feel like a Joel Osteen or something now. Claim the victory! You know, oh my God, I can't stand those kind of, oh, here, let's go, hurry up. You know, you got to do the 3-point sermon here. That was the intro. Now we got 3 points to go. Y'all still ready to go? It didn't sound as exciting that time. I'm going just because Laura said to. Hey, first of all, here we see in this chapter the fear of the Lord. We see the fear of the Lord. Now, again, the NIV, and I kept stumbling over it, I couldn't spit it out. It said the gates of Jericho were securely barred. The Message Bible says Jericho was shut up tight because of the Israelites. It was shut up tight because of the Israelites. I like the way Eugene Peterson puts that, because that gives me the image of the city was on code red. They'd gone past code yellow, code orange. They were at code red, man. It's all hands on deck. Every man battle to your battle station. Man, they were on high alert. So to me, instead of it saying, shut up tight because of the Israelites, I think it would read better, Miss Jerry, if it said the city was shut up tight because they feared the God of the Israelites. Hey, let me tell you, in a day when there was no internet and there was no 24-hour news rolling, word had spread to Jericho way before the Israelites got there of what God had done for them beforehand. Joshua chapter 2, verse 9. Let me read this to you. Write it down and read it later. When the spies went into the land, they went to Rahab, the prostitute's house. Don't try to get all fancy with me why they went to a prostitute's house. Anyway, I'm just telling you, that's where the Bible says they went to hide out. Rahab said this to them. know this. The Lord, we know that the Lord has given you this land, and a great fear of you has fallen on all of us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. Check it out, friends. Word had spread how the Lord had opened up the Red Sea for them, how God had wiped out the Egyptian army, how God had enabled the Israelites to wipe out 3 other kings of nations that they should have never been able to defeat, how God had opened up the Jordan River so that the 2 million of them could cross over. And now those people that God had done all those things for are knocking on their door, and they are literally shaking in their boots, afraid because they have heard what God has done to the enemy of the Israelites. So first, there was a great fear of the Lord. Secondly, we see the promise of the Lord, and that's in verse 2. And don't read over this without catching what it really says. It says, then the Lord said to Joshua, see, I am going to give you Jericho. See, I will give you the city. Is that what it says? What does it say? All of y'all are looking at me. I have given you Jericho. Don't overlook. Everybody say have. How many of y'all, I remember asking y'all before, y'all like English. How many of y'all like English class? A bunch of y'all. If Noelle was here, she was an English major. I don't know how we lived together, but anyway, because I butcher it. Have is in the what tense? Let's see, wait a minute, don't say it yet. There was what was the tenses from English? There was a present, there's a present, past, and the future, right? You want to guess which tense have is in? Is in the past. But you say, wait a minute, preacher. They hadn't even circled the city once, and God's already said, I have given you the city. How is that? Because God was telling Joshua and the children of Israel, it's not going to happen. I have already delivered the city into your hand. Joshua, all you and the rest of the crowd have to do is trust and obey, and then you can claim your homeland. It'd be, friends, just like somebody, it'd be like Brother Dennis writing me a check for $100,000, signing it. All I got to do is take it to the bank and cash it. And I'll take it right after church. But anyway, wouldn't I be crazy not to go cash the check? It's already been filled out. It's already been signed. All I got to do is claim it. That's what Jericho was. God had already given it to them. All they had to do now was go in, clean up the mess, and take it. So we see there the promise of the Lord. Thirdly, we read the instructions of the Lord. That is, how they could go about claiming their check. Hudson Taylor. You ever heard the name Hudson Taylor? Yep. Okay, a couple of y'all have. He was a missionary to China, I think for like 51 years, something like that. He said that there are 3 ways we can go about in serving the Lord. Number 1, we can make the best plans we know how and hope that they succeed. Or number 2, we can make our own plans and then ask God to bless them. Or number 3, we can ask God for His plan and then do what He tells us to do. Hey, and I tell you what, in my life and in the lives of most churches I've been in, I know which one most people usually do. It's usually number 2. You know, we come up with a plan and we start doing it, and then we say, oh yeah, and hey God, how about bless what we're going to do here? You know, it's amazing, friends, when Joshua, I'd love to have been sitting there by Joshua when he received his orders from the Lord. You know, one thing, we know they hadn't started church yet, Tom, because Joshua didn't call a committee meeting together and analyze the instructions and then call for a vote. Are we going to do it? All in favor, raise your right hand. You know, opposed sign, same. You know, he didn't care about calling a vote for it. He didn't argue with God. He didn't try to alter the plan. And hey, God, you know, if we did this, he didn't try to alter God's plan. Instead, he followed God's instructions exactly as God gave it to him. And how did it turn out for him? That's right, Ms. Eller gave him the thumbs up. It turned out pretty good, didn't it? Again, they got the city that God had promised them. I don't know if you remember or realize it, but Joshua, friends, was a battle-hardened soldier. He had been through many battles with the children of Israel, fighting the enemies of God. You remember there was Joshua and there was his buddy Caleb. They were the ones that 40 years ago wanted to take the land. So for old battle-hardened Joshua to hear marching orders like this, it must have sounded kind of strange. Because God doesn't talk about putting your armor on. God doesn't talk about getting your swords and spears together. He doesn't talk about preparing the gauntlet. He doesn't talk about strategies, secret attacks. He doesn't talk about, here's how we're going to lay siege to the city. Hey, I got to share this with you real quick. I see what time it is, so I'll talk real fast. It's like one of those disclaimers on an auto commercial. This was neat to me, man. This is how they usually conquered a city. They wouldn't go in and just knock down the front door and kick it in and go in and say, start fighting and killing and all that. They would lay siege to a city. And what that means is they would cut off any way in or out of the city. And the first thing that the opposing army would do, they would find the water source going into town and they would dam it up, they would cut it off, and so they would surround the city so that nobody could come out and so that no supplies could go in, and then they'd basically just sit out there and play solitaire or Clash of Clans on the iPad, and it's like, well, when y'all are ready to give up, we're here. And they would just sit there and just wait it out. Check this out, y'all. I found this out. That the Assyrians, they besieged Samaria for nearly 3 years. You can read about it. What is it, Nahum or Micah? It's one of them prophets from the Old Testament. I should have looked it up, sorry. But just Google, Assyria besieged Samaria. It took them 3 years before they finally got the city. And you read in the Bible, it talks about how they ran out of everything to eat and drink. They started eating their own kids and the people that would die inside the city. Until there was, nobody else left to eat or nothing to drink. Only then did they surrender to the Assyrians. When the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar went in to take Jerusalem, they besieged Jerusalem for 18 months. For a year and a half. Nobody went in or out of Jerusalem. And check this out. I always like at lunch, I do Today in History. Just see something that happened that day. This last, Wednesday or Thursday, whatever the 18th was, in 1991, to show you this siege thing is true, the Croatian city of Vukovar, they surrendered to the Yugoslav People's Republic Army after an 87-day siege. So friends, Joshua was probably surprised when God didn't say, lay siege to the city and let's just wait it out. That wasn't the plan, and Joshua went with it. So what was God's plan? First of all, it was to march around the city once a day for 6 days, 7 times on the 7th day. But they were supposed to carry an important article of furniture with them, and what was it? The Ark of the Covenant. I don't know if you know what that is or not. It was a box. It looked like a miniature casket almost. It was about 5 feet long, 3 feet high, and 3 feet wide. It had 3 things in it. It had a copy of the 10 Commandments, which, they didn't run off a machine. It was made out of stone tablets. They had that in the box. Also, they had a jar of manna. You remember what manna was? Well, we had a sermon on it. Manna literally means, what's it? What's it? Anyway, God told them to save a jar of it, put it in the box to always remind them He could supply their every need. And there was a third thing in the box. Does anybody know what this was?
That was the tree, twig, or...
Exactly, man. You're right at it. It was Aaron's rod. Anybody know who Aaron was? It's Aaron, Moses' brother. What's interesting to me, John, I'm surprised he didn't tell them to put Moses' rod in there. Because remember, Moses did a whole lot of stuff with that stick he had. Anyway, God told him, hey, put Moses' brother's stick in the thing, in the box. And the reason was in the Exodus chapter 7, when Moses and Aaron went before Pharaoh, let my people go, all that Charleston Heston thing. Anyway, Aaron threw his stick down and it turned into a snake. The Egyptian sorcerers threw their sticks down, all of theirs turns into snakes. But guess what Aaron's rod did? His serpent. Exactly. Aaron's rod said, or his serpent said, y'all look mighty tasty. And it sucked them all up. It ate all the enemy snakes. And then in Numbers 17, the Israelites got together. They're having a committee meeting, and they won't listen to what God has to say. And so God says to show them, Aaron, that I'm the one speaking here. Throw down your rod. And it was just a dead stick. And when he threw this dead stick down, leaves began to form on it. Twigs came off of it. It came to life. Aaron's rod budded. So that's the three things that were in this Ark of the Covenant. The most important thing to remember about the ark, you can forget the size of it, you can forget what's in it, which probably most people will. But the most important thing is to remember the ark symbolized God's presence. You see, you and I today that are saved, we have who living in us? The Holy Spirit. God don't live at Heart Song, friends. God lives, I should have wrote down a bunch of y'all's street names, but anyway, I didn't. God lives in Gold Hill Mesa. He lives in Falcon. He lives in Manitou Springs. God is everywhere through the Holy Spirit now. In that time in the Old Testament, the Holy Spirit wasn't the same. He didn't function the same. Say that right. So the ark, where the ark went, symbolized God's presence. That's why God said, you send that ark in front of everybody else, because I am what? I'm going ahead of you. I'm the one going to give you the city, so let me go first. So like I said, that's the ark. And then the priests, they blew on the trumpets as the soldiers walked, some in front, some behind, all the while everybody else was supposed to be quiet. So think about this from a human standpoint. It made no sense at all. From a military standpoint, it was suicide. From a logical standpoint, it was totally insane. Yet it's what the Lord told them to do, and do it they did. And because they did, the walls came tumbling down and they received God's best for them. Hey, if we start to wind this thing down, as I studied for today, I realized maybe as never before that on the Israelites' part, man, this was all about trust. Trust. They had to trust God. I wrote it down so I wouldn't mess it up, and then I couldn't find it. They had to trust God's way implicitly and unequivocally. And when they obeyed His commands 100%, they got what they had coming to them. Friends, in the theological world, we call this lordship. Lordship, and in particular the lordship of Jesus Christ. It's when we become a child of God, as the Bible says, we become a new creature. Old things have passed away, all things have become new. We are no longer our own boss. We claim Jesus Christ as Lord. And what does a Lord do? A Lord tells you what to do. You don't tell the Lord what to do. You listen to Him and follow His lead. But sadly, so many Christians today, they don't want to do what Jesus tells them to do. They want to do number two. They want to say, hey, God, this is my plan. How about you follow along with me? It's kind of like this. You ever see a hitchhiker? Yeah. Hey, were any of y'all ever hitchhikers? No. Oh, hey, I can imagine some of y'all being like a hippie and hitchhiking across the country. I'm not going to tell y'all which ones I think would do it. I think it's the most awesome thing in the world. I wish I had the nerve to have done it. Hitchhike across the country. But anyway, in our lifetime, we picked up one hitchhiker. He ended up we thought he was a dead guy. He was just dead drunk, Miss Sandy. We had to pick him up and drug him in the car. Why I ever did it, why I'm telling them, I don't know. I'm not going to pick up a hitchhiker, but it would be like this when you think about the lordship of Jesus Christ. Suppose you're riding down 25, you're coming south, and you see a guy thumbing a ride. You're like me. I'm not picking up no hitchhiker, but for some reason, it strikes your fancy and you put on the blinker and pull over and you start backing up the side there to give this poor guy a ride. You back up, the dude opens the door, and to your surprise, lo and behold, who do you think it is? No more than Jesus Christ himself. We know it's him, Tom, because the pictures from Sunday school, where Jesus is always a white guy with brown hair and blue eyes. You know, that really ain't what he looks like, but anyway, that's who we think he looks like. It's Jesus Christ himself. You're like, Lord, I am so honored, you know, to give you a ride. Please, will you get in and ride with me? Jesus kind of sticks his head in the car and he says, never. You're like, what do you mean? You won't ride with me? Jesus says, I don't ride with anybody. I drive. You go my way or there's no way. So today you think about those walls come tumbling down. If they hadn't trusted God 100%, if they hadn't given their life totally to him, this story wouldn't even be in here. It would have been erased from the pages of history. You know, God would have had to find somebody else. So don't think this is about some cute kid's Sunday school lesson. This is about you and me. Are we really going to do what God has called us to do? Whether that's in our personal life or as a church, or do you and I want to tell Jesus to get in and take a ride with us? Because he never rides. I'll leave you with this verse. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith, it is what? Impossible to please God. The writer of Hebrews didn't say without faith you might please God. You can hope you'll please God. He said, let me tell you, if you don't have faith in God, you're never going to please him. And he goes on and he says, because you may think, well, what kind of faith am I supposed to have? And the writer goes on to tell us, without faith it's impossible to please God, because first we must believe that he exists, and then that he is a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. So do you think God's not going your way? Have you been seeking him? And if you have, are you going to let him drive? Because he's not going to take a back seat to nobody. Almighty God, thank you so much. Man, we could have gone so many different ways with this account from your holy word. And it's a story we've probably heard 1,000 times. But thank you, God, for showing me, maybe like I never had before, how you called us to follow you wholeheartedly. Not to argue with you, not to propose a better plan for you, but you said, hey, look, this is the way. Walk ye in it. So we're either going to walk with you or we're going to walk away from you. Help us today to realize in our own life, what are some walls that may need to come down? Show us what it is, God. Man, we want to go deeper in our walk with you. Show us what it is we need to get rid of. Show us what it is we need to start doing. Whatever it is, time is running short and the days are getting crazy. So help us to do whatever it is so that we can be a better follower of you. Thank you for everyone here today. Speak to them, Lord, as you know each one needs. And I'll trust you for the victory. In Jesus' name, amen.